Welcome to Pig-Headed and Well-Read. I am Ethan Rowley here with my friend and co-host Nate Skidmore. This episode we're covering chapters 1 through 6, and this is a spoiler-free pod. So we're covering anything up through chapter 6, anything after that, we won't touch on at all. We plan to release episodes weekly every Tuesday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and our YouTube channel. And each episode we plan to cover roughly 50 pages of East of Eden. You can also follow us on our social media at Pig-Headed and Well-Read. If you're reading along with us and have your own insights, comments, jokes, or corrections, feel free to email us at pigheadedandwellread@gmail.com. Quick content warning before we get into things. Due to the nature of East of Eden's story and characters, throughout this read-along, we might be touching on some mature and complex themes, including but not limited to violence, abuse, suicide, alcoholism, racism, war, death, and sex work. If these topics are difficult for you, please listen with care. Nate, what are you excited to get into for this first episode?
Yeah, so in this first episode, we're going to cover the first 6 chapters of the book, which most of the episodes are going to be only 2 or 3 episodes, maybe 4. And in these first 6 chapters, we are going to get Steinbeck dipping into the Cain and Abel story for the first time, something he's going to do several times throughout the book. So looking forward to our first taste of Steinbeck's interpretation of the Cain and Abel story from Genesis.
Right on. Without further ado, let's kick it back to our past selves. So we're going to start with a 3-sentence coin flip summary. Nate, do you want heads or tails?
I'm looking at that, and I think ergonomically it's going to land tails, so I'll take heads.
You want heads? Okay.
Yeah.
So whichever one it lands on, well, they'll have to give off the fly, off the cuff, a 3-sentence summary of the 50 pages we read. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
It is tails.
That's you.
That's me. Okay.
All right.
Three-sentence summary of 50 meaty pages on the fly. Haven't rehearsed. The novel opens up describing in detail the Salinas Valley. Sentence 1.
Okay.
Sentence 2. One family is the Hamiltons, who are the narrator's relatives, and they are immigrants from Ireland, but they live on really infertile land. Period.
You got a lot to cover in this last
sentence 3.
You better lock in here. You covered chapter 1.
Yeah. Sentence 3. The bulk of the reading centers around the Trasks, who come from a father in the military, his 2 sons trying to get his affection, have a Cain and Abel type story falling out, and one goes to the army and one stays on the ranch. Period.
All right. Well, you pulled it together there. You captured a lot of stuff. All right. Well,
yeah.
we better do some more in-depth chapter summaries.
Okay.
But that was good. Yeah. We talked about it. So you're going to be taking the odd chapters. I'll do the even ones. So how about you take it away with chapter 1?
Okay. Chapter 1. We open the novel with a first-person narrator describing the Salinas Valley, which is where they grew up. And this valley sits between 2 sets of mountains. There's the Gabelens in the east. They're described as warm, sunny mountains, and the Santa Lucias in the west. And the narrator says these are unfriendly and dangerous. So already polar opposites. And due to these mountains, the narrator has had throughout their life a dread of the west and a love of the east. Throughout chapter 1, and it's really just like the first 3 pages, are describing flora and fauna of the Salinas Valley. And he's waxing nostalgic. He wants us to feel warmth for this place we've never been to. And the land of the Salinas Valley really represents the realities agriculturally of the times. And I think it's probably best explained by the 30-year cycle that the narrator observes. He says that in this 30-year cycle, there's 5 to 6 super wet, plentiful years of rain, sometimes to the point where the rain causes crops to die. There's just so much rain. Then there's maybe 6 to 7 years of just okay rainfall, and then the dry years. Nothing grows. The land cracks and dries, and eventually people end up hating the valley that they had loved just 15 years prior, selling things for pennies on the dollar to leave and go find somewhere else. So that's 3 pages of just descriptors. Nate, as you were reading that, were you thinking, this is just nature? Is this how it's going to be for 600 pages?
It crossed my mind. I was like, wow, he's really giving us we're getting weather updates, chapter one.
Yeah.
It
Why
was
did
interesting.
Ethan recommend me a geography textbook?
Yeah. Um, it took me, I was trying to, I like read the first chapter and I was like, did I miss like who the narrator is? I was like, I don't think it's Steinbeck. I don't think it's him. I probably a character. And then like, I was
Yeah.
like looking for it to be like, this is who I am. I was like, it didn't say.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a
but
little hazy.
I figured, this is an old timey book. Back in the day, people didn't have like TikTok or apps, and so
Hmm.
I feel like as a writer, you didn't have to worry about losing people's attention. Because it was
True.
either like read this book or I don't know what people did back then. Go spin a wheel, something
Yeah.
something
Who
1900s-y.
knows? The 50s.
Um, yeah, so longer attention spans. You can spend the first chapter talking about rain.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So he, after talking about all these nature descriptions for 3 pages that really kind of envelop you, it felt more like 7 or 8 pages, but it's really only three. And then the narrator starts to talk about the people that have shaped the land. There's 3 main groups: the Indians, the Spaniards, and the Americans. The Indians, the narrator's description reminds us that this was written by a man in the 50s who was born right at the turn of the century. Because he essentially calls the Indians lazy, they plant nothing. I think he says they're an inferior breed. It's just a little
Does
bit of
say that.
a little bit of a yikes moment describing the Native Americans. And then he just kind of glosses right over that. Then he says, after the Indians, there's the Spaniards. They're greedy, they're tough. Then he lets us know, hey, in California, there's San Francisco, there's San Bernardino, there's all these sand places. That's because of the Spaniards. They were named all sorts of religious names. So he's just kind of peppering in fun facts about California. Then, lastly, the Americans, who the narrator describes as being even greedier than the Spaniards. They make their own rules and they build towns primarily around water. And the 6 or 7 page chapter is all setting up the Salinas Valley for what will eventually be the narrator's grandfather coming to Salinas Valley, who's moving into the dry foothills of Salinas. So that's kind of how the chapter ends. It's sort of like, and my grandfather moved here.
Yeah. Okay.
Chapter one. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Very deadpan, just like, yeah, the Indians, they sucked, and you're like, oh, hello.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know, like he's not nice to anyone in their descriptions. Like he's like, yeah, the Indians, they were lazy, the Spanish were greedy, the Americans were even more greedy, and
Hmm.
it's like maybe just like a pessimistic guy who hates groups of people indiscriminately.
Yeah. It
Um,
seems like really critical of westward expansion, the American dream. I think in the 50s, when all those little houses that all look the same, the idea of the nuclear family were popping up. That was kind of like the 50s American dream, but this was definitely the American dream of late 1800s immigrants. And so potentially some criticism there.
all right, well, Chapter two is a quick one. We were joking before we got on. I got all the short chapters, so you might hear a lot of Ethan's voice on this pod. If we look at the end, you can see who talked the most. Your graph's gonna be crazy. But chapter two, we get the introduction to Samuel and Liza Hamilton, who are immigrants from Ireland. And so I kind of kept track of some of the descriptors used to describe them. So Samuel is described as honest, good-looking, large, gentle. He's a blacksmith, carpenter, woodworker type. He's an inventor. And they mention that he has no mind for making money. So it's described, that they move to the Salinas Valley because they're a couple and she's pregnant. They get a certain amount of land dedicated to them.
Mhm.
It's terrible land. And Samuel kind of creates a shop or so on the land and he creates some devices. He makes threshing machines. He makes machines to dig wells, and like it's the kind of inventions where it's like he could have been a wealthy man if he
Mhm.
knew how to make money with it, but he
He just
generally
couldn't
kind of got
market. Yeah.
kind of got taken advantage of a little bit. It mentions that he didn't collect his debts. Like he would let people get away with IOUs, and then like a year would pass, and he'd be like, ah, whatever. Like
Hmm.
so, just kind of a nice guy. They described him as full of gaiety, which is not a term people use very much anymore. But I can imagine what that means.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean, the way it's described, he sounds very capable. Like he built the house. They mentioned that he delivered all nine of their children, and like did like the medical procedure of like cutting the cord, making sure that healed.
Hmm.
That they had kind of a big medical book that he used to treat his own family.
Dr.
Um,
Gunn's medical book.
yeah, yeah. So like kind of an amount of capable that makes you feel a little bit sad as someone with an email job where it's like, wow, like I this guy was, ranching and inventing things and delivering
Yeah.
babies like an OBGYN, and uh I I I just kind of manage an Outlook inbox all day. That's kind of but um yeah, men were men, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's Samuel. And then his wife Liza sounds less fun. The words to describe her are small, tiny. Um, they said she's described as having a sense of sin, and being suspicious of fun. They're described as like the narrative describes as like not really understanding how those two people are together.
The
And that
first
happens
odd
in life.
couple. Yeah.
The first odd couple.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's I was kind of seeing it as like gender role reversals. Like maybe traditionally Liza would have been the caring one and Sam the hard ass, but it's definitely very, very flipped, at least maybe is how we would have seen in the late 1800s or the 50s when this was written.
yeah, yeah. I didn't hone in on gender roles being reversed necessarily, but I don't know. She's just kind of an interesting character. They describe her as like expecting suffering and like being uncomplaining. So as a wife, she doesn't sound very fun to hang out with for Samuel, but she does seem like a good perhaps partner to have
Yeah.
to travel from Ireland to California and have nine children with. Um, so maybe that's just what Samuel needed. But
There's
so
some to love.
yeah, yeah. But that's the two of them. And the chapter kind of mostly describes them, and then it kind of ends with this passage I actually wanted to read because
Okay.
I thought it was interesting, and it actually just kind of describes some of the people that it just describes the people coming, like all the immigrants coming from, across the United States, from Europe, from everywhere, to settle the
Hmm.
Salinas Valley. Um, and it says, but I think that because they trusted themselves and respected themselves as individuals, because they knew beyond doubt that they were valuable and potentially moral units, because they could give God their own courage and dignity and then receive it back, such things have disappeared, perhaps because men do not trust themselves anymore. And when that happens, there is nothing left except perhaps to find some strong, sure man, even though he may be wrong, and to dangle from his coattails.
Yeah.
I was reading that. I was like, that's heavy. I mean, it's certainly interesting, kind of looking back, kind of thinking of it from Steinbeck's time, from our time. It's like, and maybe we'll get more into this with themes, but I just think that's an interesting way to kind of end the chapter, reflecting on that these people had the opportunity. They had the opportunity, right? He mentions that the venture is gone. They had the opportunity to travel to a new land and kind of settle it, and leave their home nations behind that isn't really out there anymore for people, and
Hmm.
that they were kind of a unique people in a way that people really aren't anymore, where they just had this. Um, I know they just had this faith and this trust and this belief in themselves and in God that they could go out and do this, and so they did it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and
I underlined that too. I highlighted it, and I was kind of thinking more along like biblical metaphors, where so many people, at least in the Old Testament, we think of Moses and they're traveling throughout the land and the desert 40 years or whatever wandering, and they're doing it because of their faith in God. They gave God courage and dignity and then received it back. And so maybe there's a little bit of Steinbeck, like old man shakes fist at cloud, but then I think it's also kind of that biblical illusion that we might see throughout all of these pages.
yeah, And then just how it ends, the last sentence where it's like, perhaps because men do not trust themselves, and then it dot dot dot. Uh, there's nothing left, perhaps There's nothing left except perhaps to find some strong, sure man and dangle from his coattails. And it's like, oh, I might have seen some people doing some coattail dangling in
Hmm.
recent history from a strong, sure man.
Totally.
Um, so maybe Steinbeck doing a little future casting. Maybe, I imagine in the 50s. Did anything happen in like the 40s and 50s that would make someone write that? Anyway, let me grab some water real quick.
Okay.
I've talked too much.
Yeah. As you're grabbing water, I'll just call out one thing that I really like in the beginning of chapter two that really makes it seem like these characters are real life people. Because the narrator starts saying, I gotta depend on hearsay, on old photographs, on stories told, and on memories which are hazy and mixed with fable in trying to tell you about the Hamiltons. There's only a few records concerning them except for the usual papers on birth, marriage, land ownership, and death.
I mentioned that I wasn't sure who the narrator was, if it was Steinbeck or someone else, and it's like, this is probably someone else.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like he's saying that he was related to these people.
Hmm.
Anyway, chapter three. Now it's your turn.
Okay, chapter three. Buckle up. This one's huge. So
Hmm.
we've gotten a background on the Hamiltons. Now we're getting into the second main family, the Trasks. And we open right up with Cyrus. He's the patriarch of the family, the father, and he was in the Civil War during its height, fighting the rebels. He survived, but lost his right leg, and so he ended up making himself his own shoddy version of a wooden leg that he just kind of walked around on. It says whenever he walked, he did his right leg did semicircles as he walked, which I just think was a really fun visual. And he kind of sets up Cyrus to be this war hero in the first paragraph, but then immediately it explains that it's kind of all smoke and mirrors. He really just enjoyed messing around with the troop of replacements. He was chasing rebel girls in haystacks, never really went into combat. Um, he got 30 minutes into seeing the enemy for the very first time. Leg gets hit with a slug, obliterates his leg, and that's why he had to get this wooden leg. This did not slow Cyrus down, though, especially with his sexual endeavors. He must have had some real game because even on his peg leg, he was still getting whistled at by sex workers, charged him a dime for his time, and also gave him the worst case of the clap that we've ever seen, maybe. Gave him
I,
gonorrhea.
I don't know about his game. I feel like a dime, that's like a small fortune coming out of the Civil War, I believe.
Yeah, it's
I think a sex worker sees a man hobble around on a peg leg, and she's like, this is the easiest dime I've ever made.
true.
um, but yeah, he's not a good guy. I mean,
No, yeah. So
nasty.
not really a war hero, and then goes about on these sexual endeavors. Back at home, though, Mrs. Trask, who's also super religious, kind of like Liza,
Hmm.
um, she really thinks that Cyrus is not going to return home from this war. And so she goes about on nocturnal philandering, it says, which have got to be some sort of nighttime sexual encounters with other men in her town having affairs. Because when Cyrus gets back and he gives her gonorrhea, she takes this as a sign from God that she's being punished for sleeping around with these other men in her town while Cyrus hadn't actually died.
I don't. I don't think.
You didn't get that?
I don't think she'd slept around. I think I. It seemed like. Did I misread that? It seemed
That's what
like
I
it
thought
mentioned that
nocturnal
it seemed like it's
philandering
mentioned that
was.
she kind of would create God in the image of whatever she thought up, and so like while he was gone, she envisioned like this God that would allow her to communicate with the dead.
Okay.
And then when she got gonorrhea from her husband, like I think she found a way to make it her fault, and I think she blamed it on like some sex dreams she was having. I didn't
Could have been. So nocturnal
because the
philandering
way the
either,
way she's
yeah.
described as being so religious, I don't think she was just doing it all the time. And then
Okay.
when she got back, her husband got lucky that I think she got an STD
Hmm.
and found a way to blame it on herself
Yeah.
for even just dreaming about having sex. when really her husband had sex with a prostitute. Um, and then anyway,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. I thought she, because it mentions that she like made confessions to things that she couldn't have possibly done,
Hmm.
um, and like told people that she did things that there's no way that she did because she just kind of warped her mind to make sense of how she had gotten this disease.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, like, he doesn't really elaborate exactly what nocturnal philandering is, and that makes it even harder for like the audience to swallow the idea that she thinks it's her fault that she got gonorrhea, and that she
Hmm.
ends up she thinks that she has to give some sort of sacrifice, and so she like writes the perfect suicide letter. It takes 2 weeks to craft her letter, and then drowns herself in a shallow pond. And the last thought that goes through her head is, when they take my dead body out of this pond, I'm gonna have mud on my dress. Like that's the last thing that goes through her head.
Pretty tragic character.
And
Not
and
great.
it's like half a page, but I feel like we get such a really great look at this
Exactly.
woman. It's really tragic, but I think that it's written so well. Anyways, Cyrus now is left with baby Adam, and he has no clue how to raise a child. And so for a while, he's really only giving Adam a rag soaked in whiskey and lets him soak on it until he's done crying. And this actually has really great effects for his health. After he kind of outgrows maybe the whiskey soaked rag, he thinks, well, we can't have mother's milk, so we'll get goat milk. And that causes them to vomit for a while, but I think that they're living off of a diet of whiskey rags and goat milk for a little bit. As this
I
is
have a I have a
happening,
I have a newborn son, and so
yeah, are
this
you
gave me an idea. I was like, I was like,
whiskey rags and goat milk?
I'll try whiskey ragging him. Anyway, go
So,
on. It said his health was great after that.
yeah, yeah, maybe you don't need immunizations. You just need whiskey rags. So, within a month of his wife dying, Cyrus starts to court the neighbor's 17-year-old daughter. And I don't know how old Cyrus is, but he's definitely older than 17.
Not
And yeah,
he's not a teenager.
and he's kind of courting her primarily for three things: free labor, babysitting, and sex. And this woman's
Yeah,
name is
yeah.
Alice, and it takes her just 2 weeks to get pregnant. And Cyrus loves the fact that she will only speak when spoken to. So dumps one wife for another, but she's a utility marriage more than anything. Meanwhile,
Yeah,
while this is happening,
he found his trad wife.
yeah,
She was
yeah.
trad wifing before it was cool.
So Cyrus, he now has a wife, and he has a baby and his wooden leg. And he starts to sort of use this wooden leg as proof that he's a seasoned war hero, even though he never saw real combat. And so over time, he just really weaves these taller and taller tales about his time in the military. And he starts to believe these fabricated tales of his time as a war hero. Eventually, him and the people around him are convinced he's a war hero, was able to be at every important event and battle in the Civil War, even though it wasn't physically possible. And then on top of that, he was in every possible secret and important military meeting. And even when Lincoln is assassinated, just through the power of pure insinuation, he's able to convince people that he was Lincoln's most close and trusted ally. So, the master manipulator and liar of the post Civil War era.
Truly goaded with the sauce
Yeah,
at spinning yarn.
yeah.
This Cyrus fella. It is interesting that it talks about how he's very careful not to tell impossible stories like next to each other. Like he
Hmm. Hmm.
spreads out when he tells these stories, who he tells them to, so that people don't
Yeah,
catch on, and he never gives himself a rank he didn't deserve. Like
yep,
he's always Private Trask. He doesn't make himself a colonel.
yeah. Yeah, I was kind of
But yeah,
comparing this
interesting to
to.
think. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it, go for it.
I was interesting to think because it does talk about later in the chapter how he uses this tall tale telling to get a real job,
Hmm.
um, and become. I mean, this happens a little more down. Become pretty important. With all
Yeah.
this lying. Um, it's interesting to think about how you could get away with that before all the electronic record keeping that we have here. Like.
Hmm.
If you,
Yeah, there's
I
no way
feel
he
like
could
if
have
you
done this
tried to
now.
do that, they'd pull those documents. They'd be like, I don't think so, buddy.
So one thing that I was kind of noting here is so Cyrus is a great storyteller. I would maybe not for evil, but like it's definitely for his own personal gain. He's telling these stories. In just the chapter before, we saw Sam Hamilton, who's also great at telling stories, but almost to like a personal detriment because people feel like they can maybe walk over him, or it's just kind of they're very different. They're similar but different in that sense.
Yeah. I
So
thought it was interesting,
yeah.
like that Cyrus, like he starts off just kind of lying about where he was and what he was doing, but like he gets so into it and does so much research and reading that he does become something of an expert on the Civil War. Like
Hmm.
it mentions that he studied enough that he really does know. Like when he's telling these stories, he's not making things up. He's just saying the facts and then saying he was there,
Yeah.
which makes those lies even more believable. Um,
Yeah. He did his
but yeah,
research, that's for sure.
yeah, he locked in.
Yeah.
All right,
So because he
go ahead.
has this,
Long chapter. Keep
it's
going.
so long. This is probably the bulk of today's episode, but because he's garnered this mythical presence of his military past, and he's read all this stuff, he almost starts to try to raise his two kids. So he had Adam with his first wife, and then uh, his wife Alice then had Charles, and so he raises them almost like they're in the military, very authoritarian. He's having them do drills. Maybe he's projecting his fake past onto them. But that's what he's doing to raise these two young boys. Um, Adam, and this is one of my biggest qualms with this section of reading, is Adam, maybe he's like 10 or 11, and he just kind of randomly figures Cyrus out. He knows that Cyrus is full of crap. And I really wish that there had been something, like maybe he had heard the same story told a different way, Cyrus telling his buddies, but it's just kind of random that he knows that Cyrus is lying about his military past. But he really keeps this to himself. He doesn't go tell Charles, he doesn't call his dad out. He's the obedient child. He's a pacifist, and that really carries on throughout the rest of this chunk of reading. Um, Meanwhile, there's Charles, his younger brother by just a year, and I would compare him also like a shaken up can of Sprite, just this pent up energy. Um, and Adam is maybe more like the flat soda that kind of got left out overnight. Like that. That's
Hmm.
they're very opposite, and they're raised similarly, different moms, but completely different temperaments. Adam one day stumbles across Alice in the kitchen, and she's smiling. I don't think Adam has ever maybe seen a real smile in his life up until this point. He's never seen Alice smile, and he's shocked. He's so shocked that he compares this to as if he had seen Alice naked in the kitchen. That's how incredible this is. So he has to go run outside and replay the scene in his head, and he recognizes two things at once. Um, Alice isn't his real mother, and that when she smiles, she's kind of hot. That's kind of how I read it. He thought that I don't know. It was that's how I kind of read that.
I didn't pick up on that second part, but
Yeah,
but I
and
could have
so
missed it. Go keep going.
but it feels like a type of voyeurism because now he just stalks her to go see her smile, and that's kind of maybe I was thinking maybe he wants to feel this love and affection that he wasn't getting from Cyrus or his actual mom, but it's this innocent voyeurism that he has with Alice now. He
I think
eventually,
voyeurism's a good way to describe it. I don't like he's like spying on her to try to like because like sometimes you hear about people committing voyeurism because they're like trying to catch like a pair of
yeah,
window boobies somewhere.
yep,
But like Adam's trying to like just see someone smile, and it just kind of without even saying it, kind of gives you an idea of how insane this household is. Where
yeah,
like where like a smile feels so taboo, he feels like he has to like crouch and hide to try to catch someone doing it.
hmm,
Um, and like yeah, the same way uh a pervert sneaks around trying to see naked people. Adam's
hmm,
like he's like a smile pervert.
yeah,
He's just trying to see someone be happy,
yeah,
and and it feels so wrong because of how he's been raised. It's crazy, but
yeah.
go on.
It's
Sorry,
kind of sad. No, I agree.
it is sad. It's
Uh,
sad.
so Adam starts to almost repay her for these smiles that she's giving him in secret by leaving her little trinkets and gifts around the house. And this happens for a while. Now, the chapter then jumps, and Adam's 16, Charles is 15, and they're playing what has got to be the most late 1800s game of all time. It's called Pee Wee. And basically, they just put a stick or a twig on the ground and hit it as far as they can with a bat. And this is the only thing that Adam can beat Charles at. So he's stoked about it. He's maybe boasting a little bit, and he finally realizes that Charles is pissed at him. And so Charles has a weird little smile, takes the bat to Adam's face and ribs, knocks him unconscious, and then starts to just beat him on the ground, kicking him in the stomach, eventually leaves. Adam wakes up. Alice has seen it. He sees hatred in her face now, too. And she's just left him a little bath and towel to go clean up in, but doesn't actually give him anything. Like in person, she doesn't give it to him like, oh, I saw that, here's this. She just kind of leaves him and lets him realize, okay, I left this for you. Cyrus somehow knows that this beating happened, even though Adam doesn't out him or anything. So he starts to like kind of take a more gentle approach in training Adam. Gives Charles the militaristic type training, gives Adam the sort of love and fatherly sermons that he doesn't tell Charles. And in one of these sermons, Cyrus tells Adam, hey, look, you're going to go to the army. You're going to have to fit in, accept this mentality, go down to the lowest low you've ever been in, and you'll come out a better man. For me, it was kind of hard to assess Cyrus's genuineness here because, again, he didn't really have, like, he probably went through basic training, but his war decoration is made up. And so I think it's a little bit mix of fatherly love and pity for Adam, or maybe Cyrus is trying to rewrite their relationship a little bit. But yeah, it's just a really interesting insight to how people are going to start treating Adam. They have this affection for him, but they see him as maybe a little bit weak, mentally or physically. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think it kind of talks about how, he explains the nature of a soldier to Adam,
Mm-hmm.
and the exact phrasing he used, I just looked it up because I wanted to be sure, was that um even though like even though his knowledge came from research rather than experience, that it was still pretty accurate, um in kind of explaining the good it would do Adam to be in the military. And I feel like a lot of it is kind of him projecting an idealized version of what being in the military would be like, because like he went in the military, mostly messed around, like saw 30 minutes of combat, um
Mm-hmm.
and then got gonorrhea. And
Yeah.
so like, and so he kind of wants Adam to have this different experience and have it shape him, and have it make him better, right? Or and I-
Yeah.
and I w- and I also I had a similar suspicion, because I was like, because in this passage I'm sure you're going to explain more of it. Like a lot of the stuff he says feels really honest and true to a degree, and
Mm-hmm.
even wise. and and
Yeah.
and just kind of based. And it's really the first time I feel like we get direct quotes from Cyrus, and
Mm-hmm.
based on kind of what we've learned about him. I didn't expect. I guess you learn that he's a tall tale teller, and so those guys usually can say nice things if they need to. But I wouldn't have expected um him to share some of the more profound lessons he's about to share. So I'll kick it back
Yeah.
to you. You can keep.
Yeah. No, good point. And I think it's also interesting to note that Adam at this point doesn't call Cyrus out that he knows that he's lying. I think it's really interesting that he keeps that close to his chest. So Adam eventually asks Cyrus in this conversation, "Hey, how come you're not including Charles in these? He seems like full metal jacket, ready to get out there in the military." And Cyrus flat out says, "Charles can't go to war. It will unleash within him what needs to be chained down. He's not afraid of anything, and so because of that, he's not going to ever learn about courage." Um, Adam's kind of upset when he hears this. He knows they were raised a little bit differently. Charles never got punished and was always praised, and now he doesn't have to go to the military. Adam was given nothing but tough love, and his dad knows the army is going to be really difficult for him and is still
Hmm.
forcing him to go. And eventually, to Cyrus, kind of like almost like the nail in the coffin of, hey, you're going, and guess what? This is the reason I'm including you in these fatherly sermons. He says, I just love you better than Charles. I think he says it back to back.
Yeah,
And so he's
yeah.
really showing some paternal favoritism here to Adam. And so we go on that same night, and they're having supper. Late 1800s. They don't have
I
dinner.
got
They have supper. Yeah,
real
go for
quick
it.
about this. I did just think this was a really interesting conversation, and you get kind of more glimpses of kind of the conflicting nature that Cyrus has, where like because obviously before this we learned about this environment that he creates with this weird military household
Hmm.
where emotions are so tamped down that a smile feels inappropriate. Um, but like Adam comes out and tells Cyrus about his hiding place where he would go to hide from Cyrus.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yep.
Cyrus says, "Oh, yeah, I knew about that." And Adam's like, "Why didn't you ever come get me when I was in there?" And Cyrus is kind of like, "Well, I knew I was pushing you really hard. You know, you can only drive a human so far." And he says, "You must leave a man one escape before death." Oh, they're a really dramatic sentence, but
Yeah.
it kind of points to because like before this, it seems like this Cyrus guy really heavy-handed, and I don't even know if you're
Yeah.
ever supposed to think he's a good guy, but like it kind of points to a nicer figure than maybe you're led to believe in the pages before.
Hmm.
And then I was also intrigued by him not wanting Charles to join the military. 'Cause, like, you know, I circled that same passage where Charles was not afraid, so he could never learn anything about courage.
Yeah.
It's like I don't really understand based on Cyrus's character, like why he wouldn't want Charles in the military. It seems like all he wanted his whole life was more military.
Hmm.
And I don't know if this is later in life where he's kind of realizing things about what he did to his kids, or if he always thought this way.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but just an interesting question. And like, yeah, when he tells him he loves him better, and he says, "I love you better. Else, why would I have given myself the trouble of hurting you?" Some very old-fashioned parenting.
Hmm.
Um, just odd. Anyway, you can keep
Yeah.
going with supper.
No, good call. Yeah, the supper. It's supper time. They're ringing the
They're sup.
triangle to have them
They're
come
supping.
in for supper. Um, Adam, just at the end, he's going to say, I'm going to go take a walk. And Charles like, oh, I'll come too. And so Carlos comes with, and he just presses Adam, hey, what was Dad talking to you about?
Mhm.
Um, and he really makes this interesting distinction that he says, no, Cyrus was talking to you man to man. He wasn't telling you things. And so I think he's really seeing this, like kind of eventually when you get older, you almost become a peer with your dad. You still look up to your dad, but you can kind of see you're more on the same similar footing. I think that Charles was seeing that with Adam and Cyrus here. Adam plays it off, and then Charles goes like Draco Malfoy bully mode, just pulling out the worst thing he can say. And he just says, "Well, your mom drowned herself because she took a look at you."
Really rough.
Just
That's a
0
crazy
to one
one.
hundred. It's like calling Hermione a mudblood, like the worst thing you could do.
Just- your mom killed herself. Jeez,
Yeah, yeah.
Charles.
And
Like,
then this is where we get like the first Cain and Abel biblical allegory here. And so this is kind of where we start to see why Charles is maybe super pissed. Charles had saved up some money, 6 bits, which I looked up in old time speak. That's 75 cents. And so in today's money, it's $28. So Charles had saved up 28 bucks, gave Cyrus a German knife, and all Cyrus said was thanks. That's all he said. And that's the last I heard of a pearl handled German knife that cost 6 bits. And he's explaining this with rage in his voice. And then he finally says, you, on the other hand, Adam, you didn't save up 6 bits, and you got Dad a mongrel pup that you picked up in the woodlot. And Dad loves that dog. He trains it. He lets it sleep in his room. He plays in it when he's reading. So we learned that there's this clear offering of one's accepted and one really isn't, kind of like with Cain and Abel. And we'll talk more about that in the themes.
mm.
And during this, Adam recognizes that Charles is probably about to beat him up again, and so
he picked.
he
He's like,
takes a
I'm
little
seeing some signs.
yeah, he takes a little jump backwards, and Charles does attack. He saw right through him, crunches his nose, starts punching him in the head, and for the first time ever, Adam tries to take a swing at him, totally misses, but at least we know that Adam has some sort of fight back in him.
A
And
little.
then he bear hugs Charles, even as Charles is just socking him in the gut. And then he goes for the groin, and that's when Adam can't hold on to Charles anymore. Charles beats him up for like an eternity, and then before he goes out, Adam sees a small smile on Charles' face, and so we keep seeing those smiles pop up. I like Alice and Charles, different types of smiles.
Mm.
So Charles leaves. Adam is able to regain consciousness and hide in a ditch. And Charles comes back and he's lighting matches and they're going out to try to illuminate his way to find Adam. And Adam notices that Charles brought a hatchet with him, probably to kill him. That's yeah.
It seems. I don't think they were going to do chores together. I
Yeah.
think it was murder
Um,
time.
and so Adam must have found the best hiding spot in the world. Charles doesn't find it, throws the hatchet into a field. Um, Adam comes home. Cyrus sees him, knows it was Charles who did this, makes Adam tell him why Charles did it. And Adam says it's because Charles doesn't think you love him. He's like, he knows that you favor me. You told me this earlier today. Charles has figured it out. And this to me was this final scene for the chapter is almost like the most heartbreaking part. Is Alice starts to tend Adam's wounds, and she's like, "Hey, deep down, Charles is a big softie, right? Guess what?
Mhm.
He leaves me little gifts around the house sometimes, and it's Adam who's leaving her those gifts."
Yeah, yeah. I,
So
I was I, I was sad about that. I was like, and it's if Adam says nothing, and I was like, oh
yeah,
man, awkward. It's awkward to say otherwise. Awkward to be like, actually, the redeeming quality you find in your only son, that's me.
yep.
Like,
So
because she does say she's like he's nice. He gives me these gifts, and it's crazy because she's like there's nothing else about him that would suggest that he would do this. She's like I watch him, and he shows no signs of being nice, but he
yeah,
is because of these gifts. And Adam's like, that's me. Like,
yep,
oh my gosh, like yeah, tough one there.
yeah, and that is chapter 3. A lot of stuff there.
A lot of stuff. Big chapter for you. Okay, so on to chapter 4, another shorty here. So this chapter starts off with Charles hiding from Cyrus. Cyrus goes out looking for him with a shotgun. Um,
Hmm.
also to kill him. He's ready.
Yep.
They're about that action back in the 1800s. Um, and so he hides for I think 2 weeks, and then he comes back, and it describes the passage that is described as that murder faded to anger after some performative humility. And so Charles comes back, acts really sad for what he did. Enough time's passed that Cyrus has calmed down, and he lets it go. Um, and then at the same time, Adam's in bed, from his injuries, and Cyrus goes ahead and enlists him in the army. And so there's a little bit of a time jump. 5 years goes by. It describes Adam, kind of the good bad soldier.
Hmm.
He's in the army. It describes him as being revolted by the violence. It says that a lot of people that join the army um, get used to it or grow to like it even, and Adam never really does. Um, it says that even though he's a marksman because he had trained so long with his dad, he would miss shots on purpose.
Hmm.
And this was an interesting one where it mentions that they're doing all this fighting, and it's eventually going to set up a safer West for Americans, for Europeans to come in and settle the land. And it describes that the Adam doesn't see the future; he only sees the torn bellies.
Yeah.
Like to him, there's no sense of like I'm doing this to make people safe. I'm doing this to pave way for a safer future. Like he just really sees it for what it is, which is I'm being used as this massive, unstoppable armed force to murder people and push them off their land, so that other people that aren't even me will see massive benefit from it.
Yeah.
Um, and so pretty well scouted by Adam there to see that, to kind of not get suckered in. Like it would have been a shame if he had gone from being this sensitive boy to like kind of a hardened soldier, but it shows that he kind of keeps that sensitivity, stays aware of the consequences of his actions, feels remorse. And then while all this is happening, it also describes that him and Charles are writing each other and that they grow really close, which is interesting. I suppose that
Hmm.
one can understand that, as you um, as you're far away from, sometimes being further away from family, you like them a little better.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the annoying stuff they do, not as present. You don't see their face all the time. That, you know, when your siblings are around, you got your fists like balls up. They didn't even do anything. You're like, Sky.
Yeah, he's like, I'm tired of you
Um,
breathing. Yeah,
yeah. So he's away from his brother. They're writing each other. They're getting along. It mentions that they know each other much better now than they ever did when they lived together. And then it kind of, the last half of the chapter is just this crazy letter that Charles writes. That it says that Adam kind of doesn't get rid of. Like he keeps it and rereads it. Where Charles kind of talks about his life and talks about how he needs to get a wife, and it starts off kind of normal, and then like the pen goes out, and then he's writing with a pencil, and once he starts writing with a pencil, it gets a lot more intense,
yep,
and he's writing about how he feels about things, how he wishes he was in the army and Adam was home. Um, which I kind of thought reading that, I was like, couldn't Charles just enlist? Like, like
right.
couldn't he go? Like
Did Cyrus
you don't
blacklist
need
him? I
your
don't know.
you don't yeah, you don't need your dad's permission to join the army, I don't think. Um, Maybe he just felt like he really needed to be home. It says that Alice dies, so we lost Alice. So maybe he
Yeah,
needed to be home with Alice, and then Cyrus was gone working, and so Charles felt he needed to take care of the ranch that he couldn't leave, so he kind of got trapped.
yeah.
Um, but he says that he wants to be in the army, and then he goes back on the knife thing again. Like he's still
He is
he's
hung
it's
up
been
on the
5 years,
knife.
he's still on the knife. He's like, why couldn't Dad have just been grateful for the knife? Like why couldn't he have just used the knife even once? And like he kind of like no ownership for his actions really.
Hmm.
Like he doesn't say, like, because he says like, if Dad had used the knife, I wouldn't have had to take it out on you. Like he's saying it's Cyrus's fault that he attacked him. Um, and it says that Adam rereads it and it gives him chills. And I think this kind of leads to something that happens a little bit later. We're committed to no spoilers, so
No spoilers.
um, no, and it's in this chunk of chapters, so we will get to it in this pod. But um, I think Adam obviously keeps the letter and it stays with him. So
Yeah.
but yeah, that's chapter 4. Little bing bang.
I don't know. Like he says something sort of like, um, how do you suppose Mother kept the house the way she did? It doesn't look the same. Something settles down on it. I don't know what, but it will not scrub off. And then he even later says, uh, I got to thinking, and it come on late, after 12, I guess, but I never looked. Old Black Joe started crowing in the hen house. Then Mother's rocking chair cricked for all the world like she was sitting in it.
I kind of thought it was just kind of pointing to him not having a lot of skills outside of like all the military training they did, and like
Yeah,
now he's stuck in this house alone, and it's very lonely. Like he's imagining his mom's chair moving.
yeah.
He doesn't know how to clean, he doesn't know how to take care of the house the way his mom kind of silently just took care of everything for decades.
Hmm.
um and so he's just lonely, and he's just a lonely guy in a house by himself imagining
Going stir
things.
crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
I,
don't know.
I
I
didn't
saw that.
think
I saw that. And I was like, man, this
the
feels
mom
like
was
something's
sick, and
haunting
the
him.
mom was
Yeah,
sick in chapter 3. So when they said like the
yeah,
mom died of consumption, I was like, yeah,
yeah.
sure, but maybe
Anyways, that was one thing. That was one thing I want to point out. And then I liked how he uses "ha ha" in his
he
letter.
is using like a text, haha,
Yeah, ha ha.
like
Yeah.
LOL.
So that was funny. And then, yeah, very interesting. Dear Adam, forgot to kill you 5 years ago. Hope you're doing well. Yeah,
Hope you're well. Yeah, but it says I wrote a lot, so like that must have
yeah,
just been a crazy one that like Adam was like,
yeah.
hold
Well,
on
because
to this one.
didn't Adam say, or the narrator says, maybe he didn't mean to send this.
Yeah,
Is kind of what it said. Yeah,
yeah, like he wrote it, and then it was like on the table, and he's like, oh, I was gonna send this letter. Which one was it? Just grabs it without reading.
hmm,
Like, yeah.
yeah. Okay, chapter 5. This one can be pretty brief. It's just more of like a quick history of the Hamiltons. We go
Hmm.
back to the Hamiltons in Salinas, and they have a massive family on the ranch. I can't remember if we talked about this, but they live outside of Salinas Valley in the foothills where nothing grows,
Hmm.
and it's basically gravel. And so really bad luck, but they have a lot of land that they can't do much with. So let's just go through their family members. There's George. He's basically a goody two shoes, doesn't
Hmm.
sin, doesn't have much energy, but the narrator kind of says maybe he doesn't sin because he's lazy. Like he just has no energy to go out and do something that would require sinning. Will,
he's just a good little guy.
just a good little guy. Will has lots of energy. He's a people pleaser. He's almost like the exact opposite of his dad when it comes to making money. Will can't help but make money and eventually becomes a pretty high up person with Henry Ford and Ford Motor
Yeah,
Company.
it's
Makes a
interesting.
bunch of money. Yeah.
With Will, I thought it was interesting. He's the only one that they describe like this, but like it kind of breezes over. But like obviously at this time in American history, like even the Irish weren't super well accepted. Like they were a minority. People didn't like them.
Yep.
Uh, and it says that over time, like the Hamiltons came to be very accepted, and like no one had any
Hmm.
issues with them, and they didn't face discrimination. But like at a young age, like it says that Will just sees some people like making fun of his dad or like talking about the Irish, and it hurts his feelings, but not in like a I'm Irish and I'm proud way, and more of like a I want to fit in so bad way.
Yeah.
So it kind of, and it says that he's really the only one like that. Like he's the only one that's like determined to fit in, and it
Yeah.
describes him several times as being very conservative. And yeah, and like you said, business minded,
Yeah.
entrepreneur.
Yeah. And kind of going off that, we have Adam who figures out Cyrus, and then Will seems to be the one that's kind of figured out his dad. I don't know if all the other ones kind of know that people are initially talking about Irish or whatever, but it seems like maybe that's sort of a parallel of Will sees that Sam has some sort of flaw, right? Okay, third son, Tom, a lot like his dad, and probably my favorite quote of this whole chapter. He was born in fury and lived in lightning. So I don't really know what to make of that, but I thought that was a really cool quote to be described
He
as.
I think in modern terms we would say he had that dog in him, and
Yeah,
so yeah, he said he's like Sam, but even more so, right? So
yeah,
he's even more inventive. He tries things even Sam wouldn't do, and so
yep,
um,
yeah.
yeah, that's
He's
Tom.
he only sees the good in the world. He can't see any bad. Um, he I think it says that like it's like only sees the world after the creation of the sixth day before the fall happens. Like all he sees is the world immediately after Garden of Eden. Everything's great and perfect. Joe, Joe is the person who can smile his way out of working, um, a controlled incompetence, if you will, the darling of the family. His family continues to give him chance after chance on every farm job, starting with the hardest one, seeing he's not cut out for it, and then scratching those down until finally giving him the easiest job, which is just herding sheep. And he loses 60 sheep.
He lost the sheep.
He loses all the sheep.
It's a really
So then,
funny one because like I feel like I don't know if this is every family, but like I just feel like you meet people that aren't supposed to have a job, whether it is a family member or whether it's like someone like I've had coworkers where it's like you're working with them and you're like you're just not you're supposed to be like
your personality
um
higher.
you're supposed to be like an influencer. You're not supposed to be in these email mines with the rest of us. Like
Yeah,
you're not cut out for responsibility. Um, and so that's Joe. He's got that weaponized incompetence that he's wielding
yep,
very effectively.
for sure. So after those four sons, then the narrator kind of just breezes over the girls in the family.
Oh,
Like
tough for the girls. Give
it just
very little
goes
description.
boom, boom, boom. Una, Lizzie. Lizzie's ashamed of her family. And
Mary's
then
young.
Desi is just like described as the one who laughs a lot.
Is it
And
Desi? I read it as Denise. Did I read that wrong?
maybe did I read it wrong? It's Desi. Yeah, Desi.
It's Desi. I think I just saw the first and last letter and I was like, Denise, yeah, let's go.
Denise.
So,
But
my bad.
she's a great hang. It's fun to be with Desi.
Well,
And then
people are
we
always saying
get
that about Desi.
yeah, Desi's girl. No. The next sister is Olive, who is the narrator's mother. So there's the connection for the narrator
There's like,
to
oh,
Sam. It's
there,
Olive.
yeah.
Yeah. And then Molly, and Molly is just described as having violent eyes, I think is
I think
what
it's
I wrote
violet,
down.
isn't it?
Violet?
Violet, the color.
Okay. I think it's violet. So
It
yeah,
says she's
that
beautiful. It says she's beautiful, which weird thing to write about your aunt, but I
Yeah.
guess, go off.
Yeah, it definitely just kind of sounds like your ancestry.com and here's a few blurbs about people. And he's like, yep, she had violet eyes. There's nothing really much written about her.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then you kind of already touched on this, but Sam is an inventor. But once people start to steal his patents, and then he realizes that you can't fight money without money. So he just kind of ends up succumbing to these people that steal his ideas.
Yeah, tough
Um,
look.
and the reason that the townspeople finally say he's cool is they realize he's not a threat to steal their wives, and that's how he becomes a beloved member of society. He's not going to go after our wives, which I can see them thinking he is a threat because he sounds very charismatic.
Yeah, I want to hang out with him.
Yep.
I feel
And
good
then
about
it
my
kind of,
marriage, though. I don't think my wife would leave me for Sam
I don't think,
Hamilton.
I don't think so either.
I appreciate it.
Uh, and then at the end, we go back to Liza, reinforces that she loves the Bible and hates liquor. So everybody else drinks, even though Liza doesn't. But in a crazy turn of events, she hits 70 and it has some sort of illness, and the doctor prescribes her port wine.
Hmm.
And so she convinces herself that if she only drinks it as medicine, 1 tablespoon at a time, then she'll be fine. And that's how she remains constantly buzzed throughout the rest of her life. And that's
Yeah, kind of
Liza.
a funny turn for Liza. Where they're like, yeah, and then yeah, she was easier to be around once she loosened up a bit.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
But this
so
this chapter to me just like really showed, like this chapter and chapter one showed to me how great Steinbeck is at writing. Like he's near the end of his literary career, and these people are described in paragraphs so vividly and touches on flaws that we can relate to that they're just instantly human, I thought. And I was immersed in this chapter, even though it's just descriptions of somebody's ancestors.
yeah, no, for sure. I was good. I made a list of the characters and their descriptions because I mean, as promised, I did not read one page past chapter 6, like we said.
Yeah.
So I don't know if any of these people are important, but I'm keeping track of them. I'm gonna know who they are. So
Hmm.
yeah. Perfect. So chapter 6. Let's see. So chapter 6 starts off with Charles's life, and it talks in one of his letters to Adam. It references it to start this chapter. He had said that he needed to find a wife, and that what girl could say no to his farm? They had a big farm.
Yeah.
And so this chapter starts off with saying, even though Charles talked about getting a wife, he was mostly working with prostitutes, right? Not making a lot of
Hmm.
headway on the wife front. And then there's this passage here that I thought was really interesting. Um, and I'm just gonna read it. It says, "There is great safety for a shy man with a whore.
Hmm.
Having been paid for, and in advance, she has become a commodity, and a shy man can be gay with her, and even brutal to her. Also, there is none of the horror of the possible turn down, which shrivels the guts of timid men." Yeah, and I think Steinbeck kind of cuts very clearly through this, where like the turning of women into a commodity so that you don't feel so bad when they reject you, comes from being a timid man, and it's so
Fragile
yeah,
male
just
ego. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I thought that was interesting. Just in these first two chapters, that paragraph and the part about people not believing in themselves and having to grab onto the coattails of um, forceful men. I feel like Steinbeck wrote that like 70 years ago. He was writing about a time 70 years ago, and it's applicable now. 70 years before that, and it's applicable now. And so I think it's cool. He kind of cuts right to the heart with both of those
For
uh,
sure.
passages. But anyway, so Charles, he's got the whores. It mentions that he hurts himself working on the farm, and he's really self conscious about it. Um, and he writes to Adam about it, and he says like he doesn't even know why it bothers him so much that he has other scars. Um, but this one just really digs at him. And then it kind of jumps to Adam being discharged, and he had said, at this point he's become close to Charles, and so I kind of thought maybe he would head home, but he doesn't. He doesn't want to go home. He is not interested in going to Charles, and this is what I was kind of referring to earlier when I talked about him kind of reading that crazy letter Charles wrote.
Hmm.
and feeling chills. Like I think when he gets discharged, he's kind of holding on to that letter, and he's like, I don't want to. This guy's still talking about that knife. Like, so he kind of meanders. You mentioned he goes to Chicago, he goes to Buffalo. He has this really like sad conversation with a bartender that ends with the bartender kind of joking like, "Ah, how do I get you out of here?" And
Hmm.
and
I
and
can
even
see the
though it's a
bartender
joke,
just shining the glass the entire time, just constantly cleaning the glass.
yeah, yeah. But he's like, "How do I get you out of here?" Kind of joking, and Adam like kind of takes it very serious. And then the landlady also wants him out that he's kind of staying with, and he doesn't want to go home, so he just ends up re-enlisting, which is just an interesting thing. Like he doesn't want to go home, he doesn't want to be in the military, he's back in the military. Um, and so he's on his way to meet up with his new unit, and his father reaches out to him. I'm kind of fuzzy on exactly how this happens, but he gets like a message and he goes and he ends up meeting up with his father. And his father's this whole different man. I imagine they haven't even communicated once in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Um, and his father's well dressed. He's wearing this nice suit. He's just dressed. He's dressed how the
He has a
richest people of the
mechanical
time.
leg.
He's got a mechanical leg. He doesn't limp anymore. Um, and so he's kind of shocked to see his father that looks like this. And like it talks about his father like interacting with the Secretary of War and like and being all like, "Oh, my son, just like me, a private soldier." And like I thought it was interesting. He did kind of like Adam's kind of going with the flow, like he's kind of just letting whatever his father says happen. But he does kind of take the moment to be like, I'm a corporal, like, and because like, and I think there is kind of like even though he's not like a bang on your chest soldier type, I think there is a little pride in like I am a corporal. Like I'm not a private. You were a private. You've made this whole career out of your privateness. And I actually did some fighting. I did some shooting. But anyway, so he sees his dad interacting with all these people. And then they kind of go to his hotel and it's really nice. His father's done very well for himself. His father's bragging to him about how he can swing elections and he can make men notable and he could get him reassigned and like bring him into Washington. Um, and Adam's just really nonplussed by all of it. Like I think Cyrus expects some amount
Him to be
of
wowed. Yeah.
yeah, him to be wowed, him to be impressed, him to want to be with him. And Adam's just kind of like, all right, well, I gotta go. Like I gotta get to my unit. I'm under orders. And his father's like, I'll get you reassigned. You can be with me. And like Adam's like, I gotta go. And like his father hits him with this quote that I thought was interesting. Like he says, maybe I've made a mistake. You've learned the dumb resistance of a soldier. Um, and it's funny that he calls it that because like Adam actually is a soldier, and I'd say Cyrus is more of a researcher.
Hmm.
But so like after all the training Cyrus does, like the first time that Adam's like, I actually want to do my actual job as a soldier, like Cyrus is like, well, this isn't what I wanted.
Yeah.
So kind of interesting. And his dad, he calls him dumb there. And then he lets him go. He says, I'll let you rot in the barracks, or the let you rot in the is it barracks?
I
Where
think,
does
yeah,
he
he
rot?
said rot in the barracks. Yep, that's
Rot in the
exactly right.
barracks. He sends them off. Um, and it just kind of mentioned in one line that like Adam just really just sees through the nice hotel. He sees through the mechanical leg, and he's like, "My father Cyrus is lonely, and he wants me to be with him. He just doesn't want to be with him. He didn't like the way he was raised, even
Yep.
though his dad like loved him more. Um, like he didn't care for it, and even though he's adrift in the wind and like doesn't want to be in the army and doesn't want to be home, like he also doesn't want to be with his father.
Yeah.
So he's going to where he feels most at home, which is in the army. And I guess at
And this
some
time he
point,
can do it
I
on
would
his
assume
terms. He's not getting sent to the army while he's bedridden and can't say no.
that
He's
is,
a,
yeah, also
you know,
true.
so
Yeah, that was odd. That you would think the recruiter would be like, "You sure?"
yeah.
Like, I was like, "Yeah, take him."
Is he
But
capable? Does he know what he's agreeing to right now? Yeah.
yeah. And then the last little paragraph, it mentions Charles getting ready for Adam to come home. He's really excited. He pays an older lady to come and clean the house for real because Charles had been living in squalor, I suppose we could say.
Hmm.
eating fried food and not cleaning up and not changing clothes very often. And Adam kind of very matter of factly writes him and says like, I'm going back into the army. And Charles is hurt and doesn't respond until Adam writes four more letters, and it's just kind of
Yeah.
like, whatever, dude. um, and then it says that they kind of grow apart because I think that really hurt Charles's feelings. He they'd written all these letters, probably ending each one with "I miss you," and then
Hmm.
Adam has a chance to come home, and he joins the army again. And
Yeah.
so I think Charles is hurt.
And I don't think
Um,
Charles wants to kill him anymore. Maybe he's painting the
well,
house for him.
he's painting the house. He does miss him. I don't think it. If he wrote the letter with the knife, I assume not that long ago. I don't think those feelings are too far away.
Yeah.
Um, and then it just says that Charles turns his focus to the farm, and becomes a good farmer, I guess it says. Like,
Yeah.
very impressive.
He's just locked
So,
in on his craft, on his trade.
and then, yeah, and then that's the end of chapter 6.
Quite the meaty first 53 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of stuff here. Okay. Well, I know you just did a lot of talking, but this is the segment I'm most looking forward to, and it is Nate's Takes as a first
Okay.
time reader. These first 53 pages, this intro, this setup, what were your takeaways? Did you ever feel like, Ethan, why is this your favorite book? Why did you choose this one to read with me?
Yeah, I didn't do a good job holding in some of my takes as we were recapping the chapters. I kind of let the takes bleed into the recap.
That's okay.
So maybe for the next time I'll hold my tongue a little more, but um yeah, like as I mentioned, I think it's interesting to see the contrasting nature of these families. You don't get too much information on the Hamiltons just yet.
Hmm.
Um, as compared to like the Trasks, we get a lot more dialogue, we get a lot more details on the Trasks.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, these are really just the intro chapters, and so
Hmm.
the stage is being set. We're getting a feel for what the times are like. If you didn't know how much work it was to exist back then, maybe now you're a little more familiar hearing about how all the men can be are soldiers and also blacksmith and also ranchers and
And
baby
also, your
deliverers.
livelihood depends on how much rain falls that year.
Yeah, yeah. You kind of get a feel for how hard it's going to be. You get a feel for the family dynamics that were unique and also common for the time. With these
Yeah.
harsh father-son relationships. Um, and yeah, like I said, I think Steinbeck is not afraid to call out the people of today and call out weak men. And I think throughout the book we're going to see a lot of examples of weak men hurting people and causing a lot of problems.
Hmm.
And so yes, those are the Nate's takes.
Those are good takes. Those are good takes. Yeah, so as this being my third or so read through of this novel, a few things really stood out to me because this is like the most in depth I've read this. Like it was taking me like an hour for every 9 or 10 pages to read it. I was just taking notes and highlighting stuff. But the one thing that really stood out to me was how many opposites and paradoxes there are. So I am doing a companion read with Journal of a Novel, John Steinbeck, East of Eden, where Steinbeck would get his creative juices flowing before he sat down to actually write the novel, writing a letter to his editor, Pat, who is one of his friends. And there's this quote from like the first day that he sat down to write, and he says, uh, and so I will tell them one of the greatest, perhaps the greatest story of all, the story of good and evil, of strength and weakness, of love and hate, of beauty and ugliness. I shall try to demonstrate to them how these doubles are inseparable, how neither can exist without the other, and how out of their groupings creativeness is born. And so here's some of the inseparable doubles that I saw throughout the entire time. East versus west with the two mountains, birth versus death of the day, Cyrus and how he raises his children, versus Samuel. There's the very authoritarian way to raise, and Samuel the very loving way. Liza had two personalities throughout her life, from being the super religious person to then going after the bottle. One that I really liked was uh, Charles's letter, starting in ink and then going to pencil. I thought that those were almost like two opposites, inseparable. There's two types of land. There's the fertile land in the valley and the gravel land at the top. Rain either going to destroy or build the town. And then maybe the most important of this all was Cyrus's speech, saying that soldiers confront the most profound contradiction of all, killing when they know they shouldn't kill. So that's how I was kind of seeing this the entire time, all the differences. And then I don't know if we've really talked about this a ton, but the Cain and Abel. We have Charles and Adam, the C and A names, um, and Charles is sort of the Cain version. And there's this marking on Charles. I don't think we talked about where he's like getting the house ready, and he hits himself with a rod, and he gets this scar on his forehead that gets darker and darker. And I think that that's really comparable to the mark of Cain that God gives him in Genesis. And Cain is also cursed to be a vagabond and a wanderer. And in the letter that he writes at the end of chapter 4, he says something like, "I should be wandering." Let me find this exact quote here. Yeah, he says, "I ought to be wandering around the world instead of sitting here on a good farm looking for a wife. There's something wrong, like it didn't get finished, like it happened too soon, and left something out." And so I could just be taking more from the book than Steinbeck was actually laying down here, but I think that he's really leaning heavy into that Cain allegory there, and then with the opposites and doubles and paradoxes in the novel.
Yeah, no, I feel like that companion novel. Obviously, I'm not going to read it as we go because I'm sure there's spoilers. But I feel like just him kind of saying like letting letting the reader know, or I guess the editor, like here's what I'm gonna do. Like you're gonna see both sides of this. Like knowing that
Mhm.
that was his intention, I think will allow me as I continue to read this to kind of see those differences. And like and as we read these chapters, like you mentioned, like you see the obvious difference between the Hamiltons and the Trasks. You see the contrast between Adam and Charles. You see it
Yeah,
in in Liza and Adam's mother. Did they say Adam's mother's name?
I don't think so. I think it's just Mrs.
I don't think they
Trask,
did.
the
Mrs.
late Mrs.
Trask.
Trask. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'll definitely keep an eye out for these contrasting because right there he says it like this book is about good and evil, beautiful and ugly, and how they can't exist without each other, and in the middle is where we all
Yep.
are. And so
Sort of like how the
something to keep an
Salinas
eye on.
Valley sits between those mountains. This
Hmm.
is the battleground. We
Yeah,
can choose. Are we going east or west? Yeah,
very
right on.
nice.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about what we want to see in the Netflix series for this first
No,
little
yeah, the
chunk.
adaptation notes.
So,
Yeah. Let me click here a little bit. So,
okay.
um, I don't know how many of the characters we've met so far are going to be truly important characters. So some of what I said might be a little off, but I feel like for the introduction of the Hamiltons, the only way you're going to be able to introduce that many characters is in a very quick montage. It's going to have to be hard to like you're not going to be able to get hardly any details. I would imagine the montages would be you would see Joe losing the sheep. That's got to be in there. You'd see them all looking for the sheep. You would see who was the one that fixed was it it was Tom, right? Tom fixed his sister's speech impediment by like doing a small surgery on her up
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
hills. Yeah, I think you'd see that. I think you'd see like a very quick hitter of all of these characters coming in if they're important. If you're like, hey, they actually all die in chapter 7, maybe maybe not.
We will
But yeah,
see.
so Cyrus's introduction or the backstory of the Trasks, I feel like I feel like they're not going to want to dedicate a lot of time to like Cyrus being in the army and
Hmm.
even Adam's mother killing herself. Like I don't think they're going to want to show those things. I feel like those are going to be shown via flashback when we're in a scene with Adam, like either him thinking about it or him, talking with his father and kind of knowing the truth about what his father's, or not even knowing the truth, but
Right.
being suspicious of what his father's real military experience is. Like it could be hinted at, if they show the scene where him and Charles were fight and Charles just says, "Your mom killed herself," like then the audience knows she killed herself.
Yeah.
You wouldn't need to show it. So I'm thinking if we're being efficient, the Trask backstory more like gets mentioned by characters, or we see very
Okay.
brief flashbacks.
I
And then the
was
only scenes that I need, the only scene that I feel like absolutely has to be in the show, no way around it, is Charles beating up Adam. Um,
Yeah, I agree.
that's got to be in there. I think it could be. I'd like it. I'd like to see both of the beatdowns. I think both of them could be useful. I would understand if they're like, we really only need one, to drive home the point that he beat him up.
Hmm.
Uh, and then depending on how important Adam is going forward, Cyrus's conversation with Adam, where he has all the quotes that we liked, um, I that could be included as well. But that was kind
Yeah.
of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I really like the montage idea, and I like a montage with a narrator because this book is already has a narrator. I can't really see it being as maybe like whimsical as the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory Tim Burton narrator going through this sort of novel. It's a little more serious, but I think it would be kind of cool to have some sort of narrator, and then it could go through the family and all the events that happen in the back that are kind of creating these characters. Um, but yeah, I do think that the two fights need to happen, and I think the one scene that could be really cool is Charles lighting those matches to
Oh
try to
yeah,
find Adam.
we
I think
gotta
that would be awesome.
that's got to be seen there. And directors, they love lighting and stuff. There'll
Yeah.
definitely be like some ugly, like, because it even mentions that Adam like sees his face lit up from below, all
Hmm.
all evil looking.
Yeah, I can see
Um,
the camera moving down to like reveal the hatchet and some dramatic orchestral music happening.
yeah, yeah,
That scene will
no,
be
yeah,
sweet. Yeah.
because do they know how many episodes they're doing?
I think it's from what I'm seeing, it's seven.
7.
7 episodes. Seven, so like
Hmm.
7 hours of this. So
So we're about a tenth of the way through, so they can't dedicate a whole episode
yeah,
even to every section we're reading.
yeah,
Um, so it might have to be quick hitting. Do you
for
think they'll
sure.
do like like maybe Samuel is not really not that important? Do you think they'll do like some building on his character? Because you don't really hear him say anything. There's no quotes from him.
Yeah.
Like they'll have
I
to
think I
obviously
think
kind of come
time
up with
will
his
tell.
voice.
Yeah,
Time will tell. Okay.
time will
Okay.
tell for sure. Okay. Anything else for the Netflix talk?
That's all I had for the Netflix. Yeah.
One really fun fact that I have about the Netflix show is the show co-runner is Zoe Kazan, and she is the granddaughter of the man who directed the East of Eden movie with James Dean in the 50s. So I think it's really cool to have that connection there. And I think that she'll really want to make it authentic.
Oh, good.
So
I
that's
know
kind of
Zoe
fun.
Kazan. She was in that movie with Daniel Radcliffe.
Yep. Yep.
You know the one.
I know the one.
Yeah, everyone knows. It's who doesn't know that Zoe Kazan Daniel Radcliffe movie that I can't remember the title of.
Let's see here.
Um, has the famous scene where Adam Driver goes, "I just had sex and I'm about to eat nachos."
Oh, I thought that was Marriage Story. No.
No, he doesn't get to be that happy in Marriage Story. He's sad the whole
Yeah.
time. So I remember we watched that. We were like, "Do women root for the girl?"
Oh,
We were like, "I think I," but I don't know. We never
yeah. Well,
asked the girl.
let's wrap up here. I guess we have just a few
We
Steinbeck
need to do
facts.
Steinbeck facts. Yeah,
Steinbeck
go
facts. So
off.
from the Journal of a Novel, one that is very interesting to me is that he originally wanted the Trask last name to be Canable, Canable. And then he said, no, that is a double or rather a triple meaning that I don't want. So I'm very happy that he moved away from their last name being Canable. And then the
What does
second,
Canable mean?
I think he's just, I think he's just merging Cain and Abel together.
I was gonna say that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I think it's way too on the nose.
Oh no, we were wrong. It's a type of USB, so that's clearly what.
Oh, that's what he was thinking.
That's what it. Yeah, yeah. He was seeing the future. He was like, I don't want them confusing my
This is the USB cord.
characters with these USBs that will be invented
Great
in the
foresight by
future.
Steinbeck. And then lastly, I just want to talk a little bit about how he wants to approach the novel, which is something that I picked up on my first read, but it's nice to see it in writing from the author himself. And so here's just a few highlights. He says, "This novel has been planned a long time. I don't think I could have written it before now." Um, he says he wants the form to not be startling, the writing to be spare and lean, the concepts hard, the philosophy old and yet newborn. In a sense, it will be two books: the story of my county, which is Steinbeck grew up in the Salinas Valley, and the story of me. Um, let's see here. And then talking about the Hamiltons, he is kind of wanting them to be your next door neighbor for the reader. He wants he wants them to be the universal family living next to a universal neighbor, which I think is really interesting. That's probably why he's gone into the family members. And then lastly, I think it's really cool that he's writing this book for his two boys, his two sons. When he's writing this, they're very young. And so he keeps talking that he wants this book to be written so simply a child can read it. He says, "I want to make this book so simple in its difficulty that a child can understand it. I want to go through it before it is typed and take out even the few adjectives I have let slip in." So he's writing the
Hmm.
whole novel by hand, and then his goal is to remove any excess adjectives from the transcript before it's written. So something to just keep in mind. It's for his boys. He's trying to tell a parallel history of these Trasks and the story of where he grew up. And he doesn't think he could have ever written it before now. And he wrote Grapes of Wrath in the 30s. This is 15 years after Grapes of Wrath, and he's trying to really write his magnum opus.
All right. Well, good facts. Those are very strong. Don't I hope that's gonna be the highlight for me each episode. I love behind the scenes things. Back when Blu-ray was a thing, I liked seeing the bonus features. I go on Disney Plus. I watch Light and Magic behind the making of Star Wars. I like seeing what they did. So
Yeah,
excited for more Steinbeck facts. Um, anyway, yeah. So we can do my predictions and then wrap it up.
sounds great.
Okay, so predictions. Tough one here because I was doing some wish casting and I think I wanted to be done with Charles. Like I was like I'm sick of this guy. I'm sick of this guy. Um, but I think he's going to be important to continue contrasting with Adam. So
Okay.
I believe we're going to get one more big time Charles and Adam confrontation because it mentions in chapter one that Adam comes to the Salinas Valley, which is really
Yep.
far from where he's at right now. He's in Chicago right now, I think.
Mhm.
Um, and so I don't think he's going to go from the army and just be like, I need to go to the Salinas Valley. Like, I think there's going to be a big confrontation with Charles. I don't know if he kills him. Um,
Commit to it
should I
right now.
just
Does he or does he
should I
not
just?
kill him?
He kills him. He kills Charles.
Okay.
Um, Charles is dead. And that's why he moves to the Salinas Valley.
All right. I'm
For the
keeping track of these so we
Hamiltons.
can. So if they come true, or if you're way wrong,
Yeah.
we can have evidence.
hmm The Hamiltons. Tough to say. Tough to say what's going to happen with the Hamiltons because nothing's really happened to them yet, except for that their kids are kind of grown up where the authors left us. So I'm going to say in our next 60 pages, our narrator is going to be born. Um,
Oh, okay.
so he's going to start existing, um, and we're going to get the major confrontation between the Hamiltons and I let me see. Do I think it's going to be an internal? confrontation, or is it going to be the Hamiltons versus Trask, or versus a character we haven't seen? I'm going to say Hamiltons versus a character we have not yet met. Kind of
Okay.
becomes a budding confrontation. Um,
Okay. I like them.
yeah, and those are my predictions. I'm calling it there.
Okay. You heard it here first.
I'm like 63%. I'm going to be right. I'm not
Okay.
sure about the killing. He might not kill him, but maybe. Wouldn't that be something?
That would be wild. Okay. Well, we're 9% of the way done.
I didn't look at your
One
face
of
while I was saying any of that, so I don't. I didn't. If you were
I should
sending me
turn my I
signals,
should turn my camera off.
it's okay.
Do
I
the
was I
predictions.
was I was in my own world. I missed any signals that were sent my way.
Okay. Well, thank you for listening to this first episode of Pig-Headed and Well-Read's East of Eden Read Along. I hope you enjoyed it. Write us at pigheadedandwellread@gmail.com if you have your 2 cents. If you're also doing a read along, if you have any other questions or fun facts about Steinbeck, and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, wherever you like your social media. And we'll see you in a week.
That's right. And don't forget, never fly uphill, me boys.
Cue music.